Hello, I'm your host, Jonathan Mahrt. Welcome to On the Flywheel, Episode 1. This is a podcast where we talk to professionals and entrepreneurs about the things they do in their professional and personal lives to keep and build momentum. Welcome to the podcast today, Dan Ancheta.
Hey, how you doing, man?
Great, thanks
for having me.
Yeah, thanks for.
I'm excited to be on your first episode.
It's a big deal. Thank you for being the guinea pig.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
So, the idea of this is that we're chatting with people just about the things that make their lives work, and so that other people can maybe pick up on some of the practical things they're doing. So let's just start off with, can you share a little bit about your background and what you do?
Sure. So my name is Dan Ancheta, and I'm the president of Sequence Mortgage. We are a small mortgage company that's partnered with a much larger partner called New American Funding, and we are based in Petaluma, California, but we have locations in Petaluma, Santa Rosa, California, Portland, Oregon, Kennewick, Washington, and Seattle, Washington. And
That's
we're
awesome.
And we're a growing brand. My background is in mortgage banking and also in commercial banking, business banking. So working with with clients for their financing needs for real estate. When I was on the commercial side, commercial real estate, operating lines of credit, merger and acquisition financing, all that type of stuff. And now mostly doing 1 to 4 unit residential, like traditional mortgages. When you think of a boring old 30-year fixed mortgage, we do a lot of that. And then we also work with investors in using some like non-traditional mortgages, trying to be like technology forward and trying to make the user experience great and simple. And it is, despite what ads you see like online about, clicking a button and getting a mortgage.
Rocket mortgage and things like that.
That's not exactly how it works. It's a little more complex than that.
Yeah.
And we're trying to make the complex to be very understandable for the average consumer, so they have confidence in their financial decision and helping them make great choices when it comes to their financing and overall financial plan.
That's awesome. So I think definitely want to dig into some of those things in a little bit. But first I want to kind of start with a little bit about you.
Sure.
What got you going down this path to ultimately, have your own
So
company?
I've always had like the entrepreneurial bug in me, so like I was the kid who had the leaf raking business when I was little, as a kid, and just I've always been fascinated by entrepreneurship, and I've been able to express that in different ways. I've owned a CrossFit gym in the past. I had a hot dog cart when I was in college. These are just silly stories. Excuse me. And really, even when I was an employee of the commercial bank, I really looked at things entrepreneurially, and it actually helped my career a lot. Just thinking about things not as an employee, but taking ownership of things. And how do I make it better? What's the incremental thing that I can do today to make the business run better, to be more smooth, to have a better experience, to make more money, to find efficiencies? And I've just kind of always had that in me. So when I got into the mortgage business about 8 years ago, I just started absorbing, learning everything I could. And then I was kind of like, well, I think I could kind of do this a little bit differently. It's like that, what they call it, the entrepreneurial seizure, right? You just have this moment when you're like, all right, I think I could do this better. I think there's a way, like I don't know everything,
Sure.
but I feel like I can improve on this overall process. I can look at this a little bit differently. And I kind of took pieces of people that I knew and what they were doing and what I liked what they were doing, and I just kind of started picking at it and like, I like a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and kind of like created my own style. And it worked.
Yeah.
And then it became, started building momentum. And then other people looked at it like, hey, how do I do that? Let me show you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now we've built, we've got 16 employees and growing and really enjoying the process.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's jump into that, because we're there right now. So you're talking about the little things that you're doing differently. Can you be more specific about some of the things that you think set you apart as a business, whether it's just business in general or as specifically as helping people get loans?
The biggest thing for me is just the repeatable process. I think the biggest hurdle that I see in my business is that people don't have a predictable, repeatable, documented process, right? Like it's a manufacturing process at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Right. And your background is in manufacturing, right?
Yeah, it is.
And so it's like, hey, there's inputs, there's a process, and there's outputs. And it doesn't really matter what you're making, if it's an egg farm or a mortgage loan or like whatever it is.
Yeah.
There's if you don't have a repeatable, predictable, improvable process, you're in trouble, right? Because things change, inputs change, your variables are different, you have different supply, demand issues, and people fail either because they're too busy or because they're too slow. Does that make sense? And they don't know how to flex in and out of production, and they don't have a process where they go, okay, now that we're super busy, let me identify a bottleneck, and how do I improve that bottleneck for that continuous improvement, that kind of Kaizen idea of like, there's inevitably there's going to be a bottleneck, and then how do you address that to increase capacity, and then identify the next bottleneck and kind of incrementally grow from there. They think, I know how to make loans. What else do you want from me? Right?
Yeah. So let's dig into that for a second.
Sure.
So can you give a specific example of a bottleneck that you were able to identify and
Sure.
how you're able to address it?
Like it's something very simple, right? So first of all, we have a sales process that we have continued to improve on, and I've redeveloped this. You can ask my team probably 6 times. It drives them crazy. I'm like, okay, once we've got it figured out, I'm like, actually, I think we should tweak this, and that causes a cascade of other things that we need to change. It's something as simple as the way that we collect, store, and access data, right? So when I got into the business, the office I worked for had like paper files, legal size paper files with a 2-hole punch, and you would collect all these documents, and you would photocopy paper copies of everything, hole punch the top. There was a pink sheet with a stacking order, so it was like pay stubs, then W-2s, then tax returns. Okay, off the top of my head, this is like the exact order, and then it's like tax returns, bank statements, this other supporting documents, and there's a big old stack of paper that you wind up with. And that's how we documented our loans. And then the processor would go and pick through those things. And
this is only 8 years ago.
This is 8 years ago.
Right?
And I think they still do it this way. Okay. Okay. So then they would pick through those, the processor would pick through those files, and they would pull out what they needed, scan it, so like another trip to the photocopy machine.
Wow.
And then upload that to the electronic system to send it into underwriting and funding, that sort of thing. Okay. That works.
Sure.
But there's a better way. So what winds up happening there is something doesn't get scanned properly, you don't get the backs of something, and you return the originals back to the client, and you're missing stuff, and it drives everyone crazy. And then like that proverbial idea of like, well, didn't I already give you that? Like that's like that's the joke that people make when they're talking about getting a mortgage.
From a customer service standpoint, it sucks.
It sucks. It super sucks, and it's not a good experience for anybody, right? So loan officers are frustrated, processors are frustrated, underwriters are missing stuff. It's just not a good process. So we looked at that and we're like, no paper.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
No paper.
Easy. Yeah.
So everything gets stored in a secure drive, and it's all on the cloud, and it's all, double checked in safety and all these other things. Everyone has their own unique folder. So if we have a client who did a loan last year and they're going to do another loan this year, we don't need to ask them for the durable, tax returns and W-2s that haven't changed.
Right.
We already have them.
Right.
So we just look at what we already have and say, hey, now the updated documents are this, this, and this. It's a thinner package. We've already done our due diligence. It makes it really, really streamlined and easy. It's a better overall customer experience. And that was just, and then so that created a new problem. Everyone was naming things differently. So they'd go to the folder and they would call it bank statement -month whatever. And it's like, okay, we need to come up with a naming convention. So now we have a naming convention. It's like every document gets named the same, so that if you know that you're looking for a 2023 federal tax return, you know that it's going to be under year -document type, right?
Yeah,
and
beautiful.
You know what it is.
Yeah.
And that way you're not like scrolling through and it's like AB4XQR.PDF. It's like, well, what the heck is that thing? Right? Right? And it's like 100%. You just take hours scrolling through stuff. So this simple act of having a repeatable process, a naming convention, and then holding everyone accountable to that has saved us years in our lives of scrolling through stuff and clicking on, right? And then we're dealing with a ton of data. Right? So when we signed the lease in the office building that we're at, we made sure they had fiber, because there's so much data transfer back and forth between the host server and here, and the large files, and sometimes people scan stuff as pictures instead of as PDFs, and
makes them way bigger.
It just takes, sometimes it would take 4 minutes for a document to load, And if you think that you're looking at 100 documents a day or more, I mean, you're just spending a lot of time just on cycle time waiting for stuff to upload.
Yeah.
So just having the infrastructure that we need happens almost instantaneously makes a huge difference in our life. That's a prerequisite for any building that we go to is you have to have fiber.
Yeah.
You have to have like the best of the best internet.
Yeah, so that's interesting because you're not actually using a cloud hosted solution, and you're using something like an actual server in your office. That's the repository for everything.
So it's twofold, right? So we have like the Microsoft Suite, OneDrive thing that's hosted by our corporate company, right? And then we also use our loan operating system. It's called Encompass. It's the system that almost every mortgage company uses, and everyone hates it, to be honest with you. But it's the backbone of everything, and everything integrates with it. It's just one of those systems that you're like, it kind of sucks, but what else are you supposed to do? Right. And they know, and I think the people who own it, they know that it sucks too, but it's like so ingrained in everyone's business. They're like, go ahead and replace us.
Right.
Like, do you know how much of a business interruption is going to be to get rid of us?
Yeah, cost of reinventing that wheel for them probably isn't even worth it. Because they're not going to get new customers from it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. So, but Encompass, you have to like log in, dual authentication, all this stuff,
right?
And then it connects directly to the main Encompass server, right? And that is just firing data back and forth all the time, because when we upload something here in Petaluma, it goes onto the server, and then an underwriter that might be in Texas or might be in wherever, they go back and they access it, and it all has to be centralized. Yeah, that data transfer takes a long time, and it's super expensive, right, to keep all that data there and warehoused. So we're trying to work offline from that as much as possible, which is why we have that separate folder of all the customer documents, so that we don't necessarily have to be going into Encompass to look at a bank statement to do some analysis on it. Right. It can live offline. So it is duplicating some effort, but it's worth it in the cycle time. Right. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how that works.
So what I'm, one thing that I think sounds like you're doing a really good job of is that you're looking at the entire process. You're identifying the bottlenecks, and then you're also identifying like how much time does everything take, right? Like the perfect example right there is like sometimes like eliminating a step isn't actually helpful because it may cost you more time down the road, like as things currently exist. It actually benefits you to keep stuff in two places because
well, in theory it would be great to have everything live in one place, but to do that, like when I double click on a loan file, it takes 90 seconds. I would say for my request to get sent to the server, to be recognized, to be sent back, for the authentication to happen, for all the verifications to happen in the background, and then to actually upload the file, to populate all the information and let everything like kind of come into my computer, right? So like exactly. Okay, that's great. But if I need to look at one thing, and then exiting takes 35 seconds.
Yeah,
right?
that's slow. Wow,
it's super slow, and that's just everyone. It's a known problem with Encompass. It just is what it is.
Wow. Yeah.
Right. So okay, I can't change that, but what I can change is we keep a separate folder, and then if I put it on the OneDrive, it takes 3 seconds to load, or less. It's milliseconds. It's instantaneous.
Where my mind goes, and maybe these Encompass will never do this, but it is kind of interesting to think about. There's a privacy aspect to it, but assuming that's solvable, where AI comes into all this, where it can. These are all standard documents. Yeah, I'm sure every bank and stuff lists things slightly different. Yeah, but that seems like a really a big opportunity for AI just to chew on that data and populate loan information.
So check this out. So what we actually have to do, so we collect documents from the borrower, we name them in our naming convention, upload them to our separate drive, upload them to Encompass. Okay, all this is kind of happening manually. Right. And then there's different buckets. So the assets go into a different bucket. So you put it into one folder, click it, drag it into the asset folder, so that when the underwriter looks at it, they just go to the asset folder and know what they're looking for. The warehousing of the data is so expensive that when a loan is completed, we actually have to go in and take out stuff that we don't want. So there's it's very complicated. Wow. There's uppercase buckets and lowercase buckets, right? So the uppercase buckets are the ones that they retain, and the lowercase buckets are ones that kind of get trashed, that don't get saved in the data warehouse, because you might have an issue with a loan 4 years from now, and you have to go back and look at the original source documents. Right. But if you are, sometimes we're working with clients for months, and we might have 6 months worth of pay stubs. Wow. Do we need to document all 6 months of that. We just need to keep the last 30 days. So the 5 months might stay in the lowercase bucket, which goes away. But in the document retention, someone on my team manually has to go in there and go, okay, now that this loan is done, what are the documents that we need to retain?
Wow.
And they're manually clicking and dragging.
And that's really, and that is less expensive than just holding on to that.
The warehousing is, because we're such a large institution that when you project.
Interesting.
So essentially what happens there is the cost of the individual person gets pushed down to the branch level.
Gotcha.
Whereas the warehousing cost is at the corporate level. So they either have to like charge us more on each loan to retain those documents. Okay. Or they say, hey, there's no additional cost, but you've got to basically pay someone to do this manually. Interesting. Which is fine, and we've just kind of worked out a process for that. Again,
it is, yeah.
So I want to go back to like the overall kind of business improvement thing. So our company's called Sequence Mortgage. Right? This is my sequencer, and the whole reason for that, well, two things. The name comes from the Fibonacci sequence, which is just a mathematical thing that I'm fascinated with, and two, it was this core belief that you needed to have a sequence of events and a predictable process for loan processing, for customers experience, for building wealth, for recruiting, for acknowledgments and employee satisfaction. Like, there is a sequence of events that you can plan out, predict, calendar, and if you do that right, it can transform your business. Yeah. It's transformational. Yeah. And it saves you time, it saves you energy, it puts more hours back in your life to be with your family. And what most loan officers do, in my experience, is they have no plan. They wake up in the morning, what am I going to do today? And they kind of scroll through their emails and they figure out what their day looks like in the moment. Yeah. Right. And then they wonder why their business fluctuates, why they have 3 or 4 deals one month and then none for a couple of months. Well, it's because they don't have a repeatable process, a sequence of events they do. They don't follow up, using technology to automate their follow-up, to send loan updates. Everything is a manual process. It's the proverbial 2-hole punch on every single process, and you just get burned out. You could do that for a little while, and then you're just like, dude, this is really, really hard. Yeah, yeah. And we're trying to make this complex business as simple as possible. Right. And like most things, and kind of the whole genesis of your business venture. Yeah, right?
You're just doing it all for me.
Right. The whole genesis of the business venture is if you have processes, if you take the time to work on your business instead of working in your business, exactly, then your life gets much better.
That's the whole flywheel concept, right? Not my original idea. Stole it from the book Good to Great, which everyone should read. But
it's all called R&D, rip off and duplicate.
Exactly. Yes. But I was just like, that's exactly what I want to help people do. It's just doing the little things right over and over again to keep building momentum on the flywheel. And as you keep doing the little things right, you build the process that allows you to focus on, spend more time either on family and things that are like that, or spend more time like going out and getting new customers and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And I tell my staff, like, there's no right answer. Yeah. Right. It's like, if you want to be $100 million a year producer, great. We can build up a process and a system and a team to support you to do that. If you want to be a loan officer that does 1 loan a month and do it in as little time as possible because you want to spend every waking moment with your family, that's great too. Yeah. That's a cool business objective. Yeah. Yeah. Nothing wrong with that. It's what do you want? And then let's cater to that.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. Perfect. All right. Well, I think, man, you answered like so many of my questions without even
we'll ask them.
Let's talk. Going. So I think let's stay on the business thing for a second. We've talked about some of the tools that you're using. We talked about what a lot of people are getting wrong and getting right. I think an interesting question is like, what's the best part aside from using the software you talked about? Yeah. What's the best part and the worst part about what you do every day?
So the best part, so it sounds, it's hard to say it. So like, I feel like I'm in the relationship business. I happen to do mortgage loans, right? Like, and I know that sounds cheesy, but it's really how I feel. Like, helping people achieve a big goal, is always been very like nurturing to my soul, right? So when I have a customer or a client who is not sure if they can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, here's the plan.
Yeah.
Like, I know this is scary.
Yeah.
But you can absolutely do this. Let me show you how.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so I guess what it comes down to is like, I really love the hero's journey. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And like,
I've never heard mortgages described so romantically right now. I love it.
This is this is the thing. Right. I guess I have to make it more entertaining than it probably really is in real life. So bear with me. So like the hero's journey of like, I'm not the hero, I'm the guide.
Mm-hmm.
And the client is the hero.
Obi-Wan Kenobi
right
now.
And I get to be like the wise, person who's done this hundreds and hundreds of times.
Right.
Actually, I don't even know how many loans, maybe 1,000, I don't know, it's a lot.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm doing it constantly. I live it every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And so I get to be the person to go, look, from personal experience, I was also scared when we bought our first house. And it's true.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I was scared.
Yeah.
Like, how the heck am I going to do this? And I like to be able to share my experience and my knowledge to help people achieve a big goal and to do something that they didn't think was possible.
Yeah.
And I get a lot of fulfillment out of that. So that's the best part. The worst part of the job, or what we do, I would just say when people have unrealistic expectations, and that's partially my fault, I think, is like setting expectations and boundaries has been something I've struggled with. But, when they think that just because they're approved for a loan, that it's going to be a loan that they want and they want to pay for, right? It's like, I can approve you for $1 million. Right. But your payment's going to be $8,000.
Right.
Well, I don't want that. It's like, well, I don't have any control over the way that the
there's a
math
way to
works.
do this, but it may not feel good.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think, sometimes a little bit of disappointment that people feel when they realize just like how big of an expense housing is.
Yeah.
Right. And that doesn't feel so great. I'm trying to think what else doesn't feel good.
I mean, I think that's a great answer,
Yeah. I think maybe the other thing is we shield our clients a lot from the mundane kind of like blocking and tackling that we do on a deal.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think that we do ourselves a disservice because we don't let them take a peek into the process.
Like you make it seem too easy.
It's too easy. And they're like, okay, thanks. And it's like, dude, like I bent over backwards. Like I really worked really super hard. And maybe that's a good thing that they don't know how.
Yeah. I don't know how you communicate that,
right.
In a way that's like makes them appreciate it.
Right. But sometimes they're like, okay, thanks. It's like, dude, like I really knocked this one out of the park. Yeah. And they're like,
I think as someone who's gone through the process actually with you, I think and done it one other time, I think what you want to feel though is like as the end customer is you want to feel like it was easy, right? Because that's going to make me go back to you like, oh, so smooth.
So easy.
Dan helped me come up with a plan, and he executed the plan, and
if you have the context that it's not always easy.
Yeah.
Right. Oh man, last time I did this, it was so hard. The guy kept losing documents.
Well, that's fair. Yeah.
Right. And then it's like, well, that was so much easier with you. This is way easier than I thought. Right.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. But for a first time home buyer that doesn't know any better, they have no context.
Right.
Like I just want to be like, let's look at all these horror stories and then let me show you how easy I'm going to make it for you. But it's hard to communicate that to the client.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about the other question I want to ask is, what if you could do anything else besides mortgages, what would it be?
I've thought about this. I've like really struggled with it. I love teaching, and in a perfect world where like you can actually make a living and survive in our area on a single income and also be a teacher, like I think that'd be something I would really love to do.
Yeah.
I love coaching and teaching. So I think that would probably be it. But
there's a whole world of online content where you could go that route.
I do
someday.
a lot of coaching. So like I coach loan officers and realtors, and I spend a lot of time like helping people with their business, and that's really fulfilling. So maybe that's the answer, is like to be like a professional coach.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, like a consultant. It was like, what does a consultant do? Like, who the heck knows? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, no, it's true. It's one of the hardest parts about my business is figuring out how to communicate. Like, I'm a consultant. Like, well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
But no, I can actually help you solve a real problem.
Totally. Either that or I would own like a coffee shop.
No, awesome.
Like it would be great. My first real job was working at a coffee shop, and I just love the culture and atmosphere in a coffee shop.
That's
like,
a lifestyle job for sure.
The regular customers that come in and like talking to people. Like, it's just the relationships, I guess. Like, I love that.
I'm seeing the thread, the relationships, coaching,
yeah,
dealing with your customers, owning a coffee shop. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that might be it. I think I would own a wildly successful, center hub, communal, like community coffee shop, but also that made a ton of money.
Yeah, of course, because that's the hardest part about coffee shops.
And no one ever called out sick at 4 a.m., so I didn't have to get up and go sling coffees.
I know, that's, when I've thought about those kinds of businesses, I've considered the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's like just dealing with the people and the scheduling on those things, and that's
someone's sick and still got to get up and make lattes.
Yeah, that's
guess who gets the call.
Yeah, that's what's hard. I think that's an interesting thing to think about too, because that relationship thread, I think, applies to so many businesses and so many places, and I think that's what gets people wrong. People get wrong, and I'm interested to hear you talk about it maybe a little bit more. Is, to me, like, it's so many jobs are sales related, because that is an element of your job, is that you're selling yourself to someone.
Sure.
A realtor, so many businesses, and I think people get lost in making everything a transaction.
Yeah, I don't do transactions. I only do relationships. And if you're a person who's looking for a transaction, then I'm happy to refer you to some online lender, anonymous face person who's got a incrementally better interest rate, like nothing substantial, but like an eighth of a point, $30 a month or whatever in your payment. And you're going to have a heck of a time getting your loan approved. You're not going to be getting answers. You're going to go weeks without communication. If that's what you want, then I've got a perfect person for you to call.
Yeah.
Right? I've got a perfect 800 number for you to call and do the thing.
Yeah. No, I think I've personally come to value that so much.
And generationally, I think that the current generation of home buyers really appreciates the expertise. They're willing to pay incrementally more for an expert that helps them understand the process, that makes them feel like they're making a good decision, and holds their hand through the process.
Well, the millennial generation was probably like right in the sweet spot of a lot of people trying to buy houses, or at least first-time home buyers and stuff. They want to, they want to feel validated.
100%. Like, I can't tell you how many objections I overcome just by saying, I know this process is really hard.
Fair enough.
Your experience is real. It's stressful and it's hard. And I understand that. I've lived it personally, and I live it every single day with my clients. Yeah. Let me be the person to hold your hand through this transaction. This is like the mentor, like the guide on the hero's journey. I know that this is overwhelming, and slaying the dragon is a big battle, but let me show you how to make it happen and help you see the strength that you have within yourself to accomplish this big goal. Yeah. That's super fulfilling. And just by being honest with that and just being like, this is what's up. Yeah. It overcomes a lot of fear. It's amazing how far just caring goes, like just caring about people. If you care about if you don't have like what they call commission breath, right? And you actually care about people. You're not foaming at the mouth. Right. And like waiting for the check. And I've lost, and I think this is another good lesson for entrepreneurs. The relationships are what matter. If you lose money on a client, that's okay. Yeah. You're not going to win every single time. Yeah. Not every single deal is going to be a home run. Sometimes you have to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And you just suck it up. You take your L and you take care of the client. You don't have to let them know the economics of your deal, and you just take the loss on the deal and you move on, but you do the right thing and you save the relationship. Yeah. That's what I'm trying to keep in mind, because I'm, starting out my business, is that I've got to talk to a lot of people before they make a decision to spend money on a consultant for something. Yep. And I could talk to someone that absolutely needs a lot of help, but they may not be in a place ready to do it. Yeah. And so what I'm just trying to keep in mind is that, hey, I'm going to try and deliver you some value every time we talk. I'm going to try and care about you, learn about your business, get to know you. And maybe this is something that develops years from now, or maybe just your experience refers, you refer me to someone else. Totally. Just by being intentional with people. And I'm not going to try and hold information or insight behind some sort of walled garden just because you won't pay me for it. 100%. I think that people want to pay. Like, people are happy to pay you when they feel like they're getting value. Yep. Like, I have a really great friend who helps with some of our marketing stuff. She owns her own marketing company, and I just adore her, right? Mm-hmm. And she'll help me with things, and I can bounce things off of her. And I'm like, will you please send me an invoice? Like, I know that you're working really hard on this. You're answering my questions. You're helping me figure stuff out. You're giving me a ton of value. Yeah. Please bill me. Yeah. Like, whatever the bill is, I'll pay it. Yeah. Please. Yeah. Bianca, if you're listening, send me a bill, right? Like, for real.
Yeah.
You know, like, so I think that's really important to keep in mind. It's like when you add crazy value to someone's life and you help them in ways they didn't know they're even hurting, right?
Yeah.
And you solve a problem for them that they're like, oh, it turns out that really was having a pain there, and gosh, I feel so much better now that that's gone.
Yeah.
Like the open checkbook.
Yeah. Well, that's what I tell people as I'm having conversations with them. It's like, yeah, it may hurt to think about spending money on the services I'm going to provide, but honestly, if we look at the numbers together of the benefit you should get from this, it should be easy. Like
the ROI, it's conversation. Like, are you gonna spend some money? Yes.
Yeah.
Do you know how much money you're gonna save though?
Yeah, your payback should be, if not like months, a year. Totally. It should be fast.
Going from the horse-driven plow to the fully automated, tractor is expensive. Do you know how much time and money you're going to make off? Like it's a different world.
Yeah.
So if your business practices are, not implementing technology, you're going to find so many ways to improve businesses.
Absolutely. So let's pivot a little bit, because I know we're kind of getting up on our time here. I want to talk a little bit about personal life stuff.
Okay.
So first question here, and this is kind of a big change, is, are you a night or a morning person? I want to get kind of a poll and see where people land.
So I'm more of a night person.
Okay.
Mornings are, I have 3 kids, right? 2, 4, and 7.
Yep. You're in the thick of it.
Yeah, and it's chaos.
Yeah.
So mornings are I go on autopilot. There's a sequence of events that I do every single morning.
Yeah.
And I follow the process and go from there. But I mostly enjoy, like, once the kids get to bed and we can kind of hang out and we'll stay up late. Like, I really enjoy staying up till midnight and just watching a show or talking or, doing something with my wife or working on a hobby or something like that. So yeah, more night than morning.
That's awesome. So you talked about, once again, the sequence that you're doing in the morning.
Yeah.
Is there anything specifically you do in your kind of your morning routine that you think sets you up for success?
That's something I would like to improve on. I've always believed that having that morning routine, like I get up, I do this and I do this and then I meditate and do all those things, like that would be ideal. Mostly it's like someone's always going through a sleep regression, someone's always teething, someone's always doing something, someone's having a nightmare or whatever it is. So it's like, get as much sleep as possible, and then when 6 o'clock rolls around, it's getting all the kids mobilized and beds made and hair brushed and fed and out the door for school. In the future, definitely, like, I would love to be the person who gets up and like takes a deep breath and watches the sunrise and has a cup of coffee and journals, and like I would love that. Yeah. I totally would love that. I just, right now where I'm at in my life, it's not really.
I mean, some of that.
I guess I could. I just have to get up at like 5 a.m. But then if I'm going to bed at midnight, it makes it really hard.
Yeah, that's my struggle. That's my struggle
right
now. Is like having time in the evening.
Yeah. And sometimes that's the only quality time I get with my wife, and I really enjoy spending time with her. You know,
and that's a good sign.
Yeah, right. And it's like, well, sometimes we're just crazy going back and forth. Everyone's got stuff to do.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's the only time that we've got a chance to debrief our days and talk about what's going on and connect. And so that time's really important. So I kind of sacrificed that morning ritual time for the evening connectivity time with my spouse.
Yeah, well, and I think that's what's important too, because it's easy to like get lost in social media on kind of the hustle and grind thing, or the people that have these perfect morning routines and have 16 children and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
but
good for them.
Yeah, but everyone's in a different spot, and you got to have grace with yourself and just kind of. I think the important thing is that you're like aware of it and you're working on it, and you just one step at a time.
Like the Atomic Habits book, I love that. Like habit stacking, totally believe in that. Do that in my professional life and personal life. Haven't translated that to the morning routine yet. Check back with me on that one.
I will. So when we're talking about habits, are there any other like specific habits that you have outside of them working on the morning routine that you think make a big difference in your life?
I try to keep things as simple as possible in my life. So like I put clothes out the night before, and it's like the same basic. I wear a t-shirt and jeans and a hoodie and a hat.
Just have a bunch of sequins, mortgage merch, and
merch and swag. We got new swag the other day. Everyone's very happy about it. Crew necks, big fans. Anyway, and we are disciplined. My wife and I do a weekly We call it the State of the Anchetas, right?
Okay.
And we do like a check-in Tuesday nights, financial check-in, kind of calendar check-in. We make sure that we're on the same page about stuff. And I think that is probably the most important thing that we do, because we're shuttling around and got an appointment and someone's got to do this and they got to go to the
running a
dentist.
small company.
Right. And just to be clear on what the needs and expectations are for the week, so that you're not like, oh man, I have 6 hours of work to do. And then all of a sudden it's like, did you remember that you're on Taekwondo duty this week or whatever, I got to pick up the kids and do this. And then it just kind of throws your whole day or week out of whack. So just making sure that you're like communicating and time, using that knowledge to then time block, I think is probably pretty important process.
That's something my wife and I are working on as well, is like having the State of the Union meeting once a week. Hard to be consistent about it, but I think that's a great
we have it on the
thing.
calendar. Like sometimes Tuesday night rolls around and we're both like, no,
good.
I'm good.
Tired.
Time for bed.
Fair enough.
And other times it's a 4-hour-long conversation because there's lots to handle, right? There's lots to discuss. But I think just having that on the calendar has been really great.
Okay. That's awesome. So I think the last I want to get into some bonus questions here as we're kind of coming up on the end of our time. So what are a handful of books, maybe up to 4, that you've gifted the most to people?
Good question. The number one is a book called The Sleep Easy Solution, and I give it to any new parents that are like friends of mine or clients of mine.
Where was my book?
Yeah, I thought I gave you one.
You did not.
No? Okay.
Well, granted, I had my first kid during COVID, so things were a little more
Sleep
difficult.
Easy Solution. Couldn't tell you who the author is, and I go on like thrift books, and they always have used copies on there because it's something that you use for a few years and then stop. And I order like 10 at a time.
Nice.
Because they're just always on my bookshelf, and I handed out one on Monday.
Okay.
Because it's like a step-by-step sleep guide. And most new parents are really struggling. Even if it's your second or third kid, having a new baby is really hard, and this book kind of walks you through. So that's probably number one.
That's the quick aside. That's the biggest reason my wife and I hesitate about having another kid. It's like, we already have 2, adding another one in. I'm like, if we could fast forward to like 6 months.
Totally. The first 6 months are brutal.
Yeah.
So that's number one. Number 2 was probably The Goal. If you've read that book,
I have not.
I'll give you a copy.
You're adding to my
leave.
okay.
It's about continuous process improvement. It's something I read in college.
Love it.
And my undergrad and graduate school, it was required reading on both, and I just adore that book. So and then probably there's a book, it's mortgage specific book, called gosh darn it, I have to think of it. It's on my bookshelf over here. It's
We'll add it into the description.
In the description,
yeah.
Jeff Zimfer's book. Jeff is a friend of mine who is a consultant.
Okay.
And teaches classes, and he's based in Vegas.
Okay.
And this is called Disrupt or Die.
Okay. There we
go.
go.
Sorry,
you
Jeff.
You got it.
And then number 4 is, I'm trying to think, what other book have I gifted a bunch? Probably a Collins book. Jim Collins book, like Good to Great.
All his stuff is good.
Yeah, all good.
They're all
classic.
Pretty much all worth reading, honestly.
Yes. Those are probably the 4.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So if you could put something on a billboard over, a freeway in LA, and, thousands, millions of people are seeing it, what's the one thing you'd put on that billboard?
In LA, it'd be say, "Go Giants."
I'm just saying a busy freeway, that lots of people are going to say. I like that answer, though.
I would say if I could put a billboard up somewhere, I think it would probably say something like, "Take care of yourself. You're worth it."
That's
something like that. Be
that's
good
a
to
one.
yourself.
Yeah,
you're worth it.
Yeah, people are hard on themselves.
People are super hard on themselves.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Dan, thank you so much for being on the first episode.
Yeah, great job, man.
It's been,
you rocked it.
I appreciate it.
Thanks for having
you did
me.
all the talking. You made it so easy. So it's I got like 15 questions I didn't even have to ask because
setting you up for success.
I appreciate it. So it's
awesome,
been great
man.
having you on. Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.